Hello, everyone. This is my presentation for the final project for the ESO curriculum design PowerPoint. My name is Luis Del Angel, and I'll be going through my final project. So one of the first things for the project that I established was who were going to be the stakeholders of my curriculum design. So I decided to focus on students who were of high school age between 14 and 17, who had just arrived to the United States and have tested as having no knowledge or very little knowledge of English, as well as the next the other stakeholders that I identified were core area teachers and then ESL teachers of the next course level for the English program. And then one of the tools that I used to get my needs analysis were surveys for specifically for the students. So I asked about 10 to 14 questions. This is the first part. I asked them these types of questions. What type of technology do you have available at home? Are you more comfortable with speaking, listening, or writing activities? What are your hobbies outside of the classroom to sort of get to know their interests? Do you prefer structured homework or more open-ended responses? And then for some of them, I included questions that where I added responses such as on a scale from disagree to agree. So for number 5 and number 6, the questions were I understand the speaker completely when they talk to me in English, and they would circle whichever they felt more comfortable with, whether it be agree, slightly disagree, or disagree, as well as I can respond to an English speaker in a concise manner. And then for the next, the continued set of questions, I can read assignment instructions in English. I feel comfortable talking in English. I feel motivated to learn English. So pretty much questions that I felt were really self-analytical, where they would be self-analytical about their own skill and get their perspective outside from the testing that they would have to do to be assessed on their English level. So this questionnaire is meant to get to know them, get to know students a bit better and where they think their English skills are at. And so outside of school, in what situations have you had to speak English? What do you feel your strengths in English are? What do you feel your weaknesses in English are? Do you prefer independent, pair, or group work? And then the final question is, I would like to learn English too. And then I put a couple of answer choices. So that's why I put circle that apply. And then after doing this hypothetical questionnaire on students, I summarized for part 3, I believe, of the project, the needs analysis find. So these there were other findings, but these were my main findings, or I think the major points of the findings of these hypothetical findings. So students felt that their weaknesses were in actual speaking English, while their strengths were in listening to someone speak. So in these hypothetical scenarios, students answered that they felt self-conscious about speaking English. They felt that they didn't have that proficiency and that fluidity and that concisiveness when they spoke. And then for the next one, the students, for the most part, had an intrinsic motivation to learn English, not only for academic success, but also outside the classroom. So they did have that exterior motive, or I mean, they had an interest, an intrinsic value for them to learn the language outside of just doing well in school. And then students stated that they preferred individual work that focused on listening and writing. And I found this, having found this, I felt that I could sort of use this as a transition to make them feel more comfortable in group work and in presentations. And then I also developed another questionnaire for needs analysis. Now this one was more specifically for teachers. So for ESL teachers within the school, maybe within neighboring schools, basically get their perspective about working with ESL students, and trying to find out what I can learn from their experience. So some of the questions were, do you incorporate technology usage in your curriculum design? If yes, how so? What type of classroom activities have you been more effective at keeping students engaged? What type of homework assignments have worked for reinforcing and retaining information? So yeah, are your lessons set, or are they changing depending on your students' needs? Basically just trying to understand ESL teachers' experiences with this questionnaire. Right. So from there on, I moved on to develop the aim of the program. So the aim of my ESL program is to teach English to students who are in high school that have very little to no knowledge of the language. The program aims to teach practical knowledge of English to students who are behind in their English proficiency due to lack of progress checks, or to newly arrived students to the US. So sometimes students, might get passed on to the next grade level, and they might not yet have that proficient level of English to do well in their core classes, and they'll have to take sort of remedial English classes or ESL classes to be cut up. Sometimes, either due to some oversight, they continue to get passed on to the next grade level. And so, yeah, the class, it's envisioned to sort of teach more practical knowledge to get them to that level where they can communicate with their teachers, where their teachers can communicate with them. And of course, to the newly arrived students to the US who have very little knowledge of English or speaking English. And then some of the objectives I developed from my needs analysis. The first one being students will be able to engage with their teachers in English about the materials such as concepts and ideas, but not only that, but they can address their academic success with them and their concerns about what they might have to do in the class, or work with their teachers who might not be proficient in Spanish or any of their native languages. So objective number 2, students will have an expanded intermediate grasp of vocabulary words, knowing how to pronounce them and their definition. More specifically, they'll be able to use this vocabulary in the classroom to not only try and answer questions, but also for clarifications. As well as objective number 3, students will be able to understand spoken English and use this knowledge to communicate with their peers in English at an intermediate level, where they will be able to converse, not relying a lot on their native language. Objective number 4, students will be introduced to introductory topics about the English language, such as WH questions, vocabulary terms, the structure of English phrases, and the basic morphology of words. So pretty much what I'm doing with this program, it's pretty much an introductory program where I envision to not really be a sort of and be up, but basically build a foundation which they can then take on with their next level teacher. So I'm not looking for pretty much going for, so I'm pretty much going for intermediate. I'm not really looking for sort of them getting an advanced knowledge, but more building up the basic and intermediate. And then, for the final objective, students will gain an upper basic and or intermediate grasp of the English language that will help them for the next level, for upper level ESL courses in the high school. And then here we have one part of my 3x3 grid. We see here we have 3 different levels. We have one for verbal communication, listening comprehension, and the vocab section is in the next slide. So level 1, they'll be able, in this one, they will have, in the first level, students will be able to respond in English using certain phrases or words, but will often revert to their native language or take long pauses to support what they're trying to say. Level number 2, students give more meaningful responses in the conversation, being able to recall more English vocabulary for the responses, and students will tend to interact more in the conversation by asking WH type questions. And it's something similar for listening comprehension, where these different levels are not only building from each other, but also with each other. Here we have, vocabulary, listening, and so yeah, it's building from each level, but also within each other. And then here we have the vocabulary. Students will learn very basic level grammar. In level 2, we seek to expand that vocabulary. And then level 3, they'll be introduced to more of the inner workings of vocabulary, breaking down the word, that sort of thing. And why these domains? Why speaking, listening, and vocabulary? Well, I decided to choose these domains, specifically focusing my learning modules on these areas to achieve the desired outcomes from the grid map. So I chose them to sort of be able to have a desired outcome. So from the needs analysis survey completed by the students and teachers, I targeted areas that the students struggled with or they thought they lacked knowledge. One of the main areas of concern was with their speaking skills. So since they had very little practical structural knowledge about English, so and they said they felt comfortable with their listening skills. So in a way, I'm trying to build up their listening skills to sort of expand their skills in vocabulary and in speaking. And then for the final part, my way of evaluating the curriculum, it'll be through mid-year and end of the year surveys, asking them about their experiences, where they think their strengths are, where they think their weaknesses are after 6 months doing the program and after a year of doing the program. And also I'd be doing checking. I'll also be throughout the year, of course, checking if knowledge is retained through quizzes, tests, and other knowledge checks that I'll be doing on a regular basis, sort of as, the, what's it called? Pre-work work before the class, before instructional class, and then, or I could also do end of the class knowledge checks. And then I'll also be surveying the core classroom teachers to see if they are showing improvement in their participation in class, if they're engaging more with the teacher in English, And then I'll also be, and then the following year, like maybe a month in, I'll be surveying, I will ideally be surveying their next level ESO teacher, see where there are areas where they can improve on, and if they are ready for that next level, and then see, and then take those results and try to apply them to my current class. If there are areas where they need to improve, that I can work now with this more current class. And so, yeah, that was pretty much my presentation on my work for the final project. Thank you all for watching, and yeah, hopefully good luck now with the end of the semester. Bye.